Hi, my name is Dana, and my presentation is about institutional bias. Institutional bias involves discriminatory practices that occur at the institutional level of analysis, operating on mechanisms that go beyond individual level prejudice and discrimination. Two main types of institutional bias are institutional racism and institutional sexism. Let's review the noun and verb definition for bias. Prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in an unfair way, and cause to feel or show inclination or prejudice for or against someone or something. Different forms of bias exist in the workplace, and today I'm going to briefly discuss unconscious bias and implicit bias. Unconscious bias is the result of mental shortcuts, our likes and dislikes, and is a natural part of the human brain. The human brain evolved to embrace biases as survival mechanisms. The brain receives an enormous load of information. To deal with this immense task of processing this input, it devised shortcuts such as putting people, things, and events into categories so you don't have to analyze every day. Stereotypes are thoughts about a person or group. A prejudice relates to the feelings and attitudes about that person or group of people. Prejudice are often rooted in the idea that certain types of people are worth less or are less capable than others. Discrimination refers to behavior. Sexism is prejudice based on sex, especially discrimination against women, behavior conditions, or attitudes that foster stereotypes of social roles based on sex. It is important for us to recognize that forms of oppression like racism and sexism are deeply entrenched in the bedrock of society. The only way to change these systems of oppression is by changing the attitude and actions of the people who make up the organization. Institutional discrimination is built on a foundation of individual acts of bias and prejudice. Without these individual acts, institutions will cease to exist. But if we fail to identify these individual acts and we situate them collectively under the umbrella of institutional discrimination, then we will not know where to direct our energies. Implicit bias is a form of bias that occurs automatically and unintentionally. Nevertheless, affects judgments, decisions, and behaviors. Implicit bias can pose barriers to recruiting and retaining a diverse scientific workforce. How can organizations make breakthroughs from everyday bias? From individuals seeking to understand and confront their own biases to human resource professionals and business leaders determined to create more bias conscious organizations in the belief that productivity, personal happiness, and social growth are possible if we first understand the widespread and powerful nature of biases we don't realize we have. It is important to recognize discriminatory practices and make changes for the better in organizations. Together, we can end this type of conscious and unconscious behavior with education and re education, a shared education curriculum, short term diversity courses, media campaigns, sharing perspectives and conflict resolution, and peer based study. I want to thank you for participating. This concludes our discussion.